The breaking point. The crystalline dome of the Federation Summit Hall fractured the light of 3 suns into 1,000 dancing colors, but the beauty was lost on the delegates gathered inside. Ambassador Theron of the Polari Coalition gripped the edges of his podium, his knuckles turning white beneath his gray skin as he made his final plea. "We are not asking for military intervention," Theron said, his voice cracking with desperation. "We are begging for basic protection. The Zrakian Dominion has amassed a war fleet at our borders. Their demands grow more outrageous each cycle. They want our mining colonies, our trade routes, even our homeworld's orbital stations. If the Federation does not act, my people will be enslaved within a standard month." Supreme Chancellor Vorik surveyed the assembled representatives with his 4 compound eyes, each independently tracking different reactions across the massive chamber. In his 2 centuries of service, he had witnessed countless disputes, but this one carried the weight of genuine catastrophe. The Zrakian Dominion had grown too powerful, too bold, and too convinced of their supremacy. "The Polari situation has been placed on the agenda for immediate discussion," Vorik announced, his translator rendering his chittering speech into 100 different languages simultaneously. "I open the floor to responses." Silence greeted his words. Representatives from 40 species shifted uncomfortably in their seats, adjusted their environmental suits, or suddenly found their data tablets fascinating. Everyone knew what Theron was truly asking, and everyone knew the answer would be no. Finally, Ambassador Krell of the Vorten Republic rose to his full 3 meters of height. His reptilian features remained expressionless, but his words cut like surgical instruments. "The Vorten Republic sympathizes with the Polari plight, but we must consider practical realities. The Zrakian Dominion controls 70 systems and fields the 3rd largest fleet in known space. Direct confrontation would cost millions of lives. So we abandon entire civilizations to tyranny?" Theron shot back. "Is that what the Federation has become? A social club where the strong do as they please and the weak suffer in silence?" "Mind your tone, Ambassador," Krell replied coldly. "The Vorten Republic has contributed more resources to galactic stability than most species in this chamber. We will not be lectured about responsibility by a civilization that cannot defend its own territories." Theron's shoulders sagged. He had known this would be the response, but hearing it spoken aloud felt like a physical blow. Around the chamber, smaller species representatives looked away in shame, while the major powers maintained expressions of diplomatic neutrality that masked their indifference. Chancellor Vorik raised one of his upper appendages for silence. "Are there any other perspectives to be offered?" "Yes," a new voice rang out, dripping with contempt. "I have a perspective." General Vex of the Zrakian Dominion strode toward the central floor, his crimson armor reflecting the scattered sunlight like fresh blood. He had attended this summit specifically to deliver his message, and he savored every eye turning toward him. "The Polari complain about our reasonable requests for resource sharing," Vex said, his mandibles clicking with amusement. "They occupy 12 systems rich in rare minerals while their population barely reaches 8 billion across all their worlds. Meanwhile, the Dominion houses 40 billion souls who require those resources for survival and expansion. Those systems were settled by Polari colonists 300 years ago," Theron protested. "They are our sovereign territory under galactic law." "Galactic law?" Vex laughed, a harsh sound that made several delegates flinch. "Tell me, what exactly enforces this galactic law? This assembly of talkers? This council of cowards who cannot agree on lunch menus, let alone military action?" He turned slowly, making eye contact with as many representatives as possible. "The Zrakian Dominion is done pretending. We have issued our terms to the Polari. Surrender mining rights to the contested systems, dismantle your defensive installations, and accept Dominion oversight of your trade. You have 10 standard cycles to comply. If you refuse, our fleet will take what we require by force." The chamber erupted. Dozens of delegates shouted simultaneously, their translators creating a cacophony of overlapping voices. Chancellor Vorik's attempts to restore order were drowned in the chaos. Through it all, one seat remained conspicuously empty. Near the back of the chamber, separated from the main groupings of allied species, sat the unoccupied position reserved for the Sol system, for Earth and humanity. Ambassador Scylla of the Tavari Confederation noticed the empty seat and felt a familiar mixture of curiosity and disappointment. She had been a junior delegate when humanity first achieved faster-than-light travel 312 years ago. The Federation had sent a formal invitation, offering humans full membership in the galactic community. The human response had been brief and polite. "We appreciate the invitation and recognize the value of the Galactic Federation. However, at this time, humanity prefers to maintain an observational role. We will monitor Federation proceedings but will not actively participate in debates or votes. We hope our decision does not cause offense and wish the Federation continued prosperity." That had been 3 centuries ago. Since then, Earth had sent automated acknowledgments to every summit invitation but never attended a single session. Humanity had developed a small interstellar presence, modest colonies on a few nearby systems, peaceful trade relationships with a handful of species, but they remained conspicuously absent from galactic politics. Over the decades, humanity's absence had become something of a joke. The silent observers, some called them. The hermit species. Rumors and speculation filled the void left by actual information. Some claimed humans were secretly primitive, barely capable of maintaining their FTL drives. Others suggested they were cowards, too frightened of galactic power struggles to risk involvement. A few fringe theorists proposed more exotic explanations involving secret experiments or religious isolationism. The truth was, nobody really knew. And increasingly, nobody really cared. Earth had made its choice to remain irrelevant. General Vex's voice cut through Scylla's thoughts, returning her attention to the immediate crisis. "I see you all staring at that empty chair," Vex said, his tone mocking. "The legendary humans. The species too sophisticated for our petty politics. Perhaps we should ask them to mediate. Oh wait, they cannot be bothered to even attend our meetings." Laughter rippled through the chamber, bitter and uncomfortable. Even some of the Polari delegation's allies found themselves smirking despite the gravity of the situation. "The humans are irrelevant to this discussion," Krell stated firmly. "They have no fleet, no military alliances, no influence in galactic affairs. They chose isolation 3 centuries ago and have maintained it ever since. Whatever their reasons, they clearly have no interest in matters of war and peace." Chancellor Vorik finally managed to restore a semblance of order. "This chamber will not descend into mockery of absent parties. We must focus on the immediate crisis. The Zrakian ultimatum creates an unprecedented situation." "There is nothing unprecedented about it," Vex interrupted. "The strong take from the weak. This has been the way of the universe since the first stars ignited. The only question is whether this federation will continue its pathetic pretense of authority or finally admit what everyone already knows. You are powerless." Theron's voice emerged barely above a whisper, but in the sudden silence, everyone heard him clearly. "Then we are doomed. My people are doomed. And the Federation dies today, whether you acknowledge it or not." The truth of his words settled over the chamber like a shroud. Every delegate present understood what this moment represented. If the Zrakian Dominion could openly threaten conquest without consequence, then the entire framework of galactic law became meaningless. Other strong powers would follow suit. The smaller civilizations would be carved up like territory on a map. 3,000 years of slowly built cooperation would collapse into a new age of empire and subjugation. "The Dominion fleet will begin its approach to Polari space in 10 cycles, Vex announced, his satisfaction evident. "I suggest the Polari use that time to prepare for their new role within our growing empire. Resistance will only increase casualties." He departed the chamber without waiting for dismissal, his armored boots echoing against the crystalline floor. The message was clear. The Zrakian Dominion no longer recognized the Federation's authority. What came next would be decided by force, not diplomacy. As delegates filed out in shocked silence, Scylla found herself once again staring at that empty seat with its small nameplate reading, Sol System, Earth, Humanity. 312 summit meetings. 312 empty chairs. 312 opportunities to engage with galactic civilization, all declined without explanation. "What do you think they're doing out there?" her aide asked quietly, following her gaze. Scylla shook her head slowly. "Watching, apparently. Just watching while the galaxy tears itself apart. Or maybe they're not watching at all. Maybe they just don't care." She gathered her materials and departed, unaware that at that very moment, in a secure facility buried 3 kilometers beneath Earth's surface, human observers had just finished analyzing every word spoken in the summit chamber. They had been listening to every session for 312 years. Recording. Analyzing. Preparing. And now, for the first time since humanity achieved faster-than-light travel, the Strategic Command Council was activating Protocol Sentinel. The galaxy thought Earth was silent. They were about to learn the difference between silence and patience. Between isolation and preparation. Between absence and strategic positioning. In 10 cycles, when the Zrakian fleet arrived at the Polari homeworld expecting easy conquest, they would discover what humanity had been doing for 3 centuries in their self-imposed isolation. They would discover that Earth had not been hiding. They had been building. Waiting. Watching. And when they finally chose to speak, it would not be with words. It would be with 2,000 warships emerging from quantum slip space, each one larger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. The silent observers were about to become very loud indeed. The Titan Armada. The Polari homeworld of Pella Prime rotated peacefully beneath a sky that had known nothing but peace for 800 years. That peace had precisely 6 hours remaining. Captain Druza of the Zrakian Dominion's forward assault group reviewed his tactical displays with satisfaction. His fleet of 300 warships hung in high orbit, weapon systems armed, troops ready for deployment. Behind him, stretched across 1,000 kilometers of space, another 700 vessels of the main battle fleet completed their final approach vectors. "The Polari Defense Force is holding position at the orbital station," his tactical officer reported. 23 vessels, mostly converted cargo haulers with basic weapons. They're transmitting a general distress call on all frequencies. Druza clicked his mandibles in amusement. "Let them broadcast. No one is coming." The Federation spent 10 cycles debating and accomplished nothing. The Polari are alone. He opened a channel to the planet below. "Attention Polari Command. This is Captain Druza of the Zrakian Dominion. Your government has failed to comply with our lawful demands. We are now asserting military authority over this system. Power down your orbital defenses and prepare to receive occupation forces. Resistance will result in civilian casualties. You have 1 standard hour to respond." On Pella Prime, in the underground command center where planetary leadership had gathered, Ambassador Theron closed his eyes against the tears threatening to fall. Around him, military officers and government officials sat in stunned silence, watching sensor displays that showed the overwhelming force arrayed against them. "We could fight," General Cora said quietly, though her voice carried no conviction. "Our defense force would die honorably. And then the Zrakians would bombard population centers," Theron replied. "Millions would die for nothing. No, we cannot fight. We can only hope that surrender leads to mercy rather than slaughter." He was preparing to draft the surrender transmission when every console in the command center simultaneously erupted with alert signals. Sensor operators frantically tried to interpret the cascade of data flooding their systems. "Sir, we're detecting massive quantum fluctuations at the system's edge," a young technician reported, her voice climbing with confusion. "The readings don't match any known FTL signature. It's like reality itself is tearing open." "How many ships?" Cora demanded, her warrior instincts momentarily overriding hopelessness. The technician's hands flew across her controls, then froze. She looked up with an expression of complete disbelief. Thousands, General. I'm reading thousands of quantum emergence points. In orbit, aboard the Zrakian flagship, Captain Druza was receiving similar reports with far less calm. What do you mean thousands? Be specific. Sir, new contacts are appearing across the entire system perimeter, his sensor chief said, his training barely keeping panic from his voice. They're emerging in perfect formation. I count 2,147 distinct vessels. Mass readings indicate they're enormous. Each one is at least 3 times the size of our dreadnoughts. That's impossible, Druza stated flatly. No fleet that size exists in known space. Run full diagnostics on the sensor arrays. This must be a malfunction or an attack on our systems. But the tactical display told a story that no malfunction could explain. Points of light appeared across the holographic star field, each representing a ship of staggering proportions. They emerged from quantum slip space with mathematical precision, forming a 3-dimensional lattice that completely surrounded the Polari system. Then, as one, they began accelerating inward. Druza felt something he had not experienced in 20 years of military service, genuine fear. Get me General Vex. Get me Dominion Command. Get me anyone who can tell me what we're facing. The communications officer worked frantically, but before she could establish contact, every system aboard every Zrakian vessel received the same transmission simultaneously. It bypassed their encryption, overrode their security protocols, and displayed on every screen with crystal clarity. A human woman appeared. She wore a simple military uniform with no elaborate decorations, her gray hair pulled back severely, her dark eyes conveying absolute confidence. Behind her, through the window of what appeared to be a ship's bridge, space itself seemed to ripple with contained power. Attention Zrakian Dominion forces. This is Admiral Chen Meiling of the Earth Defense Fleet. You are ordered to immediately power down all weapon systems, withdraw to a distance of 10 planetary radii, and await further instructions. You have 5 minutes to comply. This is your only warning. Druza stared at the transmission in shock. Earth? The humans? That's impossible. They have no fleet. Intelligence reports show minimal space infrastructure. They don't even have proper shipyards. Captain, the incoming vessels are matching the transmission's origin codes, his communications officer reported. These are definitely human ships. Shields up, all weapons to maximum readiness, Druza ordered, his training overriding his confusion. If the humans think they can threaten the Dominion, they're about to learn a harsh lesson. Tactical, prepare a strike package. Target the nearest 50 vessels with antimatter missiles. Sir, we're receiving new sensor data from the advancing fleet, the tactical officer said, his voice dropping to a whisper. They're energy signatures. Captain, I've never seen readings like this. Their shields alone are generating more power than our entire fleet combined. On Pella Prime, the command center had descended into chaos. Operators shouted updates as their sensors struggled to process the unprecedented flood of data. Theron stood frozen, watching the tactical display transform from a screen full of enemy red icons to something that looked like a 3-dimensional net of blue contacts surrounding the system. Are those really human ships? Cora asked, her tactical mind already analyzing formations and approach vectors. Earth hasn't deployed a military fleet in 300 years. Where did this come from? I don't know, Theron admitted, but they're moving to intercept the Zrakians. God help us all if this turns into a battle over our planet. The 5 minutes Admiral Chen had specified ticked away with agonizing slowness. The Zrakian fleet maintained its hostile posture, weapons charged, clearly unwilling to be intimidated by the mysterious arrivals. Druza had received orders from General Vex himself, destroy enough of them to make your point, then accept their surrender. The Dominion does not retreat. When the timer reached 0, Admiral Chen's face reappeared on every screen. Her expression had not changed, but there was something in her eyes that made even veteran warriors like Druza feel a chill run down their spinal ridge. You have chosen poorly, she said simply. What happened next would be analyzed by military strategists for generations, studied in war colleges across 100 worlds, and fundamentally alter every civilization's understanding of warfare itself. The human fleet did not fire weapons. They did not launch missiles or deploy energy beams. Instead, space itself seemed to respond to their will. Quantum fields generated by the Earth vessels created localized distortions in reality. Every Zrakian ship simultaneously experienced complete weapons failure as the molecular bonds in their antimatter warheads were instantaneously stabilized at a quantum level, rendering the weapons inert but not destroyed. Shield generators shut down not from damage but because the exotic matter they used for power generation suddenly ceased following normal physical laws within the field effect. Propulsion systems halted as the fusion reactions powering the Zrakian drives found themselves temporarily unable to sustain their necessary temperature and pressure. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply paused as if reality itself had decided they should stop working. In less than 90 seconds, 1,000 Zrakian warships became floating metal shells, completely intact, completely undamaged, and completely helpless. Captain Druza gripped his command chair as his flagship systems powered down around him. Emergency lighting activated. Life support continued functioning. But every offensive and defensive system had simply stopped. He could see his crew's panicked faces in the dim red glow, hear the confused reports of total systems failure across the fleet. Damage report, he managed to ask. No damage, sir, his chief engineer responded, sounding equally baffled. Every system just stopped. It's as if someone reached into our vessels and turned everything off. But there's no weapon signature, no energy beam, no missile impact. Our ships are physically intact. Admiral Chen's voice filled the silence once more. Your vessels are undamaged and your crews are safe. This was a demonstration, not an attack. Earth has no desire to kill unnecessarily. However, you will now follow my instructions precisely. The human fleet had closed to within 50,000 kilometers, and for the first time, visual sensors could properly capture their appearance. The Zrakian officers who saw them would remember those images for the rest of their lives. The human warships were not vessels in the traditional sense. They were artificial constructs that seemed to blur the line between machine and living organism. Their hulls appeared to shift and flow, surfaces covered in what looked like geometric patterns that rearranged themselves constantly. Each ship was massive, dwarfing even the largest Dominion dreadnoughts, yet they moved with impossible grace and precision. These are Titan-class vessels, Admiral Chen explained, as if offering a casual lecture. Earth has been constructing them for 273 years in facilities beyond the orbit of Neptune, where the rest of the galaxy could not observe us. Each ship is powered by a contained singularity and armed with weapons that manipulate fundamental forces. Your antimatter bombs and plasma cannons are 3 centuries out of date by our standards. She paused, letting that information sink in. Earth has been watching the Galactic Federation since we first achieved faster-than-light travel. We've monitored every summit, every debate, every failed negotiation. We've seen the corruption, the warmongering, the way powerful species prey upon the weak while the Federation stands paralyzed by politics. We chose not to participate not because we were afraid or primitive, but because we were preparing. Building. Developing technologies in isolation so that when we finally chose to act, we would have the capacity to enforce actual peace, not just negotiate temporary truces. On Pella Prime, Theron found himself laughing hysterically, tears streaming down his face. Cora put a steadying hand on his shoulder. 300 years, the ambassador gasped. They were preparing for 300 years while we thought they were just hiding. Admiral Chen continued her broadcast, now addressing not just the Zrakians but transmitting openly on all frequencies where she knew dozens of civilizations would be listening. Earth is reclaiming its seat at the Galactic Federation, effective immediately. But we will not be observers. We will not be silent. We will be guarantors. Any species that threatens unprovoked conquest, that enslaves populations, that treats sentient beings as resources to be exploited, will face the Earth Defense Fleet. We will not conquer. We will not occupy. We will not build an empire. But we will enforce peace with overwhelming force when necessary. General Vex's face appeared on a split screen, transmitted from the Dominion homeworld. His expression was a mixture of rage and barely controlled fear. You cannot threaten the Dominion. We have allies, resources, entire sectors under our control. If you attack us, you start a war that will consume the entire galaxy. I have not attacked you, General, Admiral Chen replied calmly. Your fleet is intact. Your crews are alive. I have simply demonstrated that Earth possesses the capability to end any conflict we choose to end. Your fleet will now withdraw from Polari space. The mining systems you demanded will remain under Polari control. Any future resource negotiations will be conducted through proper Federation channels with Earth observers present to ensure fairness. And if we refuse? Vex demanded, though his bluster sounded hollow even to his own ears. Then I will escort your entire fleet back to Zrakian space myself, depositing them in orbit around your homeworld as a reminder of what happens when you threaten the innocent. Your crews will be unharmed, but your military reputation will be destroyed. Alternatively, you can withdraw voluntarily, acknowledge this action as a miscalculation, and accept Earth's role as a Federation peacekeeper. The silence that followed lasted nearly a full minute. Every being with access to a communication device across 36 systems held their breath, waiting to see if the proud Zrakian Dominion would back down or choose mutual destruction. Finally, General Vex spoke, each word clearly costing him enormous effort. The Dominion acknowledges a misunderstanding in our interpretation of Polari resource agreements. We will withdraw our forces to allow for proper Federation arbitration. This is not surrender, merely a strategic realignment. Accepted, Admiral Chen said without gloating. Captain Druza, your systems will reactivate in approximately 3 minutes. You are instructed to set course for Zrakian space at standard cruise velocity. 50 Earth vessels will escort you to ensure there are no further misunderstandings. As promised, 3 minutes later, the Zrakian ship's systems came back online exactly as they had shut down. Druza ordered the retreat, watching in his tactical display as 50 of those massive human vessels detached from the main formation to follow his fleet home. The remaining 2,000 ships of the Earth Defense Fleet held their position around Pella Prime, a protective barrier that no force in the known galaxy could challenge. In the Polari Command Center, Theron collapsed into his chair, overwhelmed by the sudden reversal of fortune. They saved us. They actually saved us. But why? Why would they reveal themselves for our sake? Admiral Chen answered his question in her final transmission of the day, this one directed specifically to the Federation itself. Earth has remained silent at every summit for 312 years. We watched you fail to prevent conflicts. We watched powerful species intimidate the weak while diplomats offered empty words. We watched the Federation's ideals slowly crumble under the weight of politics and self-interest. We stayed silent because words had proven meaningless. But now, silence ends. Earth will participate in the Federation with full voice and full force. We will support those who cannot defend themselves. We will oppose aggression regardless of its source. We will enforce the laws that your council has allowed to become suggestions. The age of galactic might makes right is over. From this day forward, humanity guarantees it. The Titan Armada has emerged from the void. And we will not go gently back into the dark.